Welcome to In Tune. I'm your co-host, Matt Rector, an aspiring luthier from Baltimore, Maryland.
And I'm your other co-host, Ethan Morset, a music producer and founder of Blue Haven Music based in Minnesota.
Our goal is to provide value to enterprising musicians, artists, and craftspeople by sharing our conversations and the lessons we've learned along the way.
If you like our content, help us out by following us and giving us a positive rating on whatever platform you listen to podcasts. Tune in for new episodes on the first and third Wednesday of each month.
This is a special episode of In Tune. Today, I'm going to be helping Ethan set up his acoustic guitar. So, Ethan has gone out of his way to get a basic kit of luthier tools so that he can work on his own instruments. So, I'm going to help him attempt to do a basic setup here today. To be clear, some of the tools he's going to be using are not necessarily the exact same tools that I use or even the exact same method. Like a lot of things, there's often more than one way to do it. So you'll have to bear with us a little bit as we do this. I should know enough to help guide Ethan through what to do, but the tools themselves that he is using might be a little bit unfamiliar to me. So anyway... what we're going to be covering in this today is a basic setup, or what I sort of consider a basic setup. I sort of break setups down into sort of two categories, where one is just a more basic setup that covers action at the nut, just action in general, neck relief, that sort of thing. What this is not going to cover is fret work. It's not going to cover fabricating a new nut or a new saddle. And actually, if you don't know what those terms are, we might do a quick little overview of that so you know what we're referring to. If you're listening rather than watching, watch the video because it will probably make a lot more sense. This is going to be out there on the interwebs on YouTube.
Oh my goodness.
Anyway, let's go ahead and get started. Ethan, why don't you show me what tools you picked up?
Yes. So Matt, a little bit of backstory. I talked to Matt about getting my guitar set up and was asking him some questions about that. And that's when he was like, well, we should just do a video. And if it's a simple setup, then I can walk you through it and you can save some money. Sort of, because I had to buy stuff, but that's okay. It'll
save you some money in the long run.
Right. And none of it is all that expensive, and I kind of like knowing how to do stuff. So, I have this isn't necessary, but I have a guitar headrest, I guess, whatever you call it. I've got a towel that I have under the guitar to protect the body. I have a truss rod for a Martin guitar. I have this thingamabob, which it says is a string action gauge and fret rocker. I have wire cutters and a string winder. I have files for filing the nut. I have a couple of other gauges. This one is a nut height gauge, so I assume that will be used around here. And this one is a truss rod gauge. Aside from that, strings, of course. Steel wool for polishing frets. And that might be everything. I have a cloth and like some lemon oil for like fretboard conditioning. But I believe that's everything that you told me to get.
Cool. One thing that you're going to have to grab that I know you've got lying around is a capo. Go ahead and grab that now.
Here it is.
All right, so just to compare, here's some of the things that I have. I did suggest that Ethan have some sort of, like you can use a lot of different things as like a bench pad to sort of protect your guitar, just something that is sort of softer. Um, you can get like a rubberized one. I have something kind of like that. You could also just use like a old piece of like plush carpeting, scrap from like carpet supplier. They'd probably sell it to you for cheap or just give it to you. You probably have scraps lying around.
Mm-hmm.
A neck rest is handy to have. It's not exactly necessary. You could like again, you could roll up a towel or something and use that. I have a few different ones that I've sort of acquired over the years. Some of them I use for different purposes. This one is made by Music Nomad, and it has a few different angles. So you can sort of use it this way. You can use it this way. This,
Well, that's
and it
cool.
sort of sits at different heights depending on how you have it set up. The thing I don't really like about this one is um, the material it's made of really attracts a lot of dust,
Mm,
and like
you can kind of see
anytime you're
that.
doing like yeah, anytime you're doing like fret work, it just gets really dirty, and like no matter how much like you wipe it off or like vacuum it and like dust it off, like it just is always dirty. Um, I also have a couple other ones. This one is interesting. Someone who again, it can be folded, so it can be used this way, it can be used this way, or this way. Fold it out, and the advantage of this is it's filled with like a heavy. I don't know if it's sand, but maybe it's sand. There's something in here, and this absorbs shock. So if I'm doing some fret work and replacing frets, it helps to cradle the neck a little bit.
Sure,
Um,
sure,
and then I also have again kind of for fret work. This spreads out the load. If
sure.
I'm like pressing frets in, and again, this can be used a couple different ways. It can be set on the bench like this, like a little slot for, so it's like good for like thinner electric guitars. For an acoustic guitar, you'd probably set it up like this. Um,
Sure.
what else here? So you said you have a truss rod gauge.
Yes.
Um, I think what I would probably call that is a neck relief gauge. I think that's probably a more accurate word for that. And basically, that's just a set of. It's basically a feeler gauge. Um, and I have a set of those here.
Ooh, there's a
So
lot.
yeah, I've got a bunch of them. But actually, when I'm using setting the neck relief, I usually use this,
Mm,
and this is a neck relief gauge. But this is a bit of an expensive tool, and if you are a guitarist who wants to be able to set up your own instruments, you don't necessarily need this. This is a good thing to have though if you're doing a lot of setups. Mine has this little strip of blue tape here because I worked in a repair shop, and we all sort of chose a different color to color code our tools so that they didn't get mixed up. And mine was blue, so
good
you'll see
choice.
on some of my tools, you'll see that there's like strips of blue tape on some of them, and that's why.
In honor of Blue Haven Music.
Yeah, that's right. That's why I chose blue. Actually, I really wanted green, to be honest, but my mentor,
Already had it.
his color was green, so I couldn't have the same color. Um, you said I think you called it. Oh, I should wait till I'm leaning over to grab stuff. I should wait till I'm in front of the mic. I think you called it a truss rod. I think what you meant is a truss rod wrench.
Yes, not a truss rod.
Yeah. Um, and I actually have the same one.
Cool.
Um, if you
Twinsies.
have some masking tape, one thing you actually might want to do is wrap some tape around here, and you'll see why in a little bit. If you have some masking tape.
I have some tape. I have. This is basically masking tape.
Yeah, just around this part here, underneath where the handle is. You'll see why.
I
While
can't
he's
wait to
doing
find
that,
out.
I will show, I've got a few other different types of truss rod wrenches here, 4 different types of truss rods. This, I bought all these tools with my own money. This is not sponsored, but a lot of these tools are from Stuart McDonald, aka Stu Mac. So shout out to Stu Mac. Please sponsor me.
And me, even though I'm not a luthier. Sponsor in tune.
Couple other things Ethan showed were some files for filing the slots of the nut. I have a set of files from Stu Mac here. Very similar. Got some wire cutters. You'll need a guitar tuner of some kind.
Is a headstock tuner okay? Like a one that
whatever
uses
you have.
The vibration, a clip-on.
Mm-hmm. We're not going to be setting intonation on your acoustic guitar today, because that would require you to do some shaping of the saddle. So,
okay.
I have a little ruler that you can use for checking the action. I have another similar one to what Ethan has. And then I also have fret rocker. Mine does not have... Mine is just only a fret rocker. It doesn't have any of the markings on it to measure action.
Okay.
So it's kind of cool. You get like a multi-use tool. I would imagine that mine is a little more like... Because mine is flat to within like 0.0001 or something like...
Right. More
mine is
accurate.
machined to be like...
essentially.
Or I would hope it is.
But... Also, it's a self-defense weapon. See? In case I have a home intruder, I could grab my fret rocker and defend myself.
Get out of my house! I'm warning you, I have a fret rocker!
Yep, pretty much.
Alright, so, to explain some quick terminology, I think everyone's going to know kind of what we're talking about when we talk about the neck of the guitar, the fingerboard, the fretboard, the body, the bridge. The terms that I think might be unfamiliar to some people are probably the nut. Yeah, and that's the thing that Ethan's pointing to, that little white piece there. That is referred to as the nut, and that is what the strings go through as they come down from the tuners to the neck. And then at the bottom is the saddle. And that is the white piece there on the opposite. Usually those are made of bone traditionally. But there are also modern plastic alternatives. And I'm not sure exactly what's on Ethan's.
Probably plastic. I don't know. I don't
Probably.
know. It is a very nice guitar, though. I like it. I like it personally.
All right. So, first things first, go ahead and make sure your instrument is in tune.
I could have done this ahead of time.
And I would say you should tune it however you plan to have it, to whatever tuning you plan to have it in the majority of the time. Because we want to set it up so that it's adjusted to that.
Slack tuning's what I'm going for. E flat standard. I've heard it called slack tuning. I got a super snark tuner here that I'm tuning with. It's super.
And whatever basic tuner you have is probably fine. If you're going to be setting intonation and you're going to be really accurate, you probably want something a little better. I have a Peterson strobe tuner that's really, really accurate. Here's a couple other ones I have. Like a Korg metronome tuner combination. I have a cheapo snark as well.
So would you say that Peterson strobe tuner is your most accurate?
Yeah, I mean that's the one I use like at the workbench for luthier related things.
Think we're good?
Oh, so you are actually in drop tuning. Okay.
No, it's not drop tuning.
Oh wait. No,
It's
you're not. No, you're not.
it's
Okay.
E flat standard.
Gotcha.
I don't know. I put it in there because there's some Alice in Chains songs that are in E flat standard, and some other ones. I think like "Broken" by Seether is an E flat standard, and I was just like, I can just capo up to E standard, so I just did E flat standard.
What gauge strings do you have on there, or are you going to put on there?
I believe they are 12s, and
Okay.
and I believe I'm putting 12s on. These are 0.12 to whatever, so yeah, they're 12s.
One thing you might want to consider if you do plan to continue to use your guitar in E flat standard, 12s tend to be sort of like the standard string gauge for most steel string acoustic guitars.
Yep.
You might want to consider bumping that up to mediums or 13s, because that gives your strings a little more tension when they're tuned down a bit.
Okay.
So just something to consider.
Yeah.
Um,
That makes sense. They're a little bit looser when they're at a lower tuning, so.
Anyway, so now that you're in tune, at least when I do a setup on a client's guitar, before I even get in tune, the first thing I would do is do a visual inspection of the instrument. Now this is your own instrument, so you don't necessarily have to do that. You really like that guitar, huh?
I like the body. It's really nice. It has a nice
Wow.
body.
Oh my.
Girl, look at that body. I work out. Oops.
Excuse Ethan while he
Chokes to death.
yeah.
Sorry about that. Anyway.
Okay, so now once you've done the visual inspection, I want to take some measurements. I want to get a baseline of where things are at.
Okay.
So first, why don't we go ahead and check the neck relief. You're going to use that, I think you called it a truss rod gauge.
This
I
guy?
would call it a neck relief gauge.
Okay.
Yeah, and this is what I would use if I was doing that. But basically what Ethan has is feeler gauges. And if you don't know what a feeler gauge is, they're thin, in this case, thin pieces of metal that are machined very precisely to a certain thickness. And so if you put them between, say, for example, a string and a fret, you can get an idea of how much of a gap there is between the string and the fret based on the size of the feeler gauge. Now, I think that the one that you bought has some suggestions as to
Yes.
and I took a look at those, and I think they're pretty good. To be honest, some of them are a little more generous than I would set up my instruments.
Okay.
But I think for, again, a general setup and an average hobbyist, they're probably pretty good. So what does your gauges say there?
So, I have 3 different
Okay.
settings. This one, I have an electric guitar thickness, it says, which is 0.006 inches or 0.15 millimeters. I have an acoustic / bass guitar one, which is this middle one, and that says 0.008 inches. And I have a classical guitar, which is 0.01 inches. So I don't know which one you would use, but the acoustic bass guitar is this middle one.
Yeah, so we're basically working. This is really, really precise. I think people don't always realize how precise some of this stuff is. I mean, we're working with, thousandths of an inch. And for me, on a steel string acoustic guitar, generally, I'm looking for anywhere. What I would be sort of consider acceptable is around 5 thousandths of an inch to 10 thousandths of an inch. But generally, I would prefer to be as close to 5 thousandths of an inch as possible. Now, sometimes there are going to be some situations where um, it makes sense to be on the higher end of that. Um, maybe the instrument needs some fretwork, but the client doesn't really want to pay for that at this time. Then you might give the neck a little bit more.
Sure.
Um, so yeah, so let's take a measurement and see kind of where you're at. So I think it came with a little pick, but honestly, what I would do is just you can use that if you want, but you can just capo at the first fret. That will accomplish the same thing. And what we're doing is we're using these strings as a straight edge. So you're going to capo there at the first fret.
As close to this fret as possible?
Just doesn't really matter.
Okay.
The amount of tension it exerts is not really going to make or break here. And you're going to measure that, I think it says at the 7th fret, right?
This is 6th.
Oh, the 6th. And then what you want to do is actually, so here's the challenge.
Mm-hmm.
You have to hold the instrument in playing position.
Oh.
Because that does, the gravity that the guitar exerts when it's sitting in that will affect, again, we're dealing with thousandths of an inch here. So that will affect, so you want to get this measurement while you're in playing position.
Okay.
So, get out the electric guitar one, or the acoustic guitar one. I'm sorry. And
the electric guitar, the electric guitar is 0.6 of an inch, or 6 thousandths of an inch.
You could use that.
What do you reckon?
And then, well, right now we're trying to measure where you're at right now. So,
okay.
Press down this, like the string. Let's use you can use your low E string if you'd like, at the 12th fret. And then what you're wanting to measure is the distance between the gap between the 6th fret and the string. And so you want to get it so that it just is touching there on that gauge. So you can try a few of them if you want, and you'll get an idea of which ones are tighter, which ones are loose.
So this is the 10,000ths of an inch for the classical. Man, you have to have good eyesight for this.
Yeah, you might want to. You can have good lighting too. That helps.
I'm gonna start with the biggest one, just to see if I have room. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Like it fits in there pretty easily.
Isn't there like a little line on there?
A line?
Like across the gauge? Or no?
There's one underneath the 25 millimeter, 0.25 millimeter.
Yeah, let me see what it looks like. Oh, okay.
And then it has this here. So it says it has like a guide saying if it's lightly touching, then it's good. If it's not touching at all, then the action's too high. If it's, I don't know, they have like little guides there.
Exactly. So you want to get it so that you have just have light contact, and that will give you an idea.
I don't know. To me, even at the 10th is definitely touching.
Okay.
Let's try this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. To me, the 8 thousandths of an inch is also touching. And it's very light, so I don't know how light it really needs to be 6. Okay. And this is the thinnest one. Hold on. That, I don't know, looks like it is also touching to me.
Okay, so your neck relief might actually be okay. Um, you didn't feel like any of them were really more tight than the others, or
I mean, I can kind of slide it, right? And get a feel for how tight it really is. Um, they all seem to kind of fit in there fine. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. Sorry, 1, 2. Oh, it's right below that dot. So, like, that is sliding reasonably easy. Oh, yeah. I mean, I notice more resistance there for sure, but it's
okay.
I don't know. It seems like
You
it's
wanted to
still
basically
touching even on this one, the lightest, the electric guitar setting.
okay. Well, you could potentially need actually more neck relief. And I know you mentioned that something that sort of prompted this setup is you were getting a little bit of buzzing, right?
Yes. It was,
So,
it was specifically on I don't know if this is helpful, but it was specifically on this string, the B string. At that fret. Hear that? It's fine there. So, I don't know if that's bad because it's just one fret, but
maybe. All right. So,
okay.
okay. Well, that gives me an idea of where your neck relief is at. So that's sort of our baseline for that.
Okay.
The other thing, let's see, that I want you to go ahead and measure is take your fret rocker.
/ self-defense weapon.
And again, we're going to have the guitar playing position.
Yeah. Okay.
And this time, you're not going to press down the strings at all, but you're going to measure the action at the 12th fret.
Do I want the capo?
Take the capo off. Take the capo off. And what I want you to measure it. So you want the fret rocker to contact the fret below. And basically what you're looking for is the distance between that fret and the bottom of the guitar string.
Okay.
And I do all of my stuff in Imperial. That's just the shop that I worked in works in Imperial. I live in the United States. That's what I'm used to. So I prefer the 64ths of an inch
Oh, I have. Well, so um this fret rocker slash string action gauge. It says the string height measurement method is you use the bottom of the string at the 12th fret,
Mm-hmm.
and you want to do it where it meets the top of the line.
Correct.
So if I were to do that at the 12th fret, I'm somewhere between probably 7/100ths to 8/100ths of an inch. So, here. I can do it in 64ths if you want to. Ooh, that's kind of blurry.
Do you have 64ths on that opposite side?
Yes. You want me to do that?
Yeah, I would. Let's do that because that's what I'm used to using.
Yeah.
Please and thank you.
You're good. I'm happy to help you. You owe me though. Um, to me, that looks like 5/64ths of an inch.
Okay. And then
The five on there on the 64ths there.
5/64ths. Okay. Yeah. And then what about on the treble side on your high E string? Do the same thing for that one.
Okay. Would you flip the guitar over, or would you leave it in this
Nope.
position?
Leave in the playing position. Yep.
To me, that looks like 4/64ths of an inch.
Okay. So those are actually pretty good measurements for an acoustic guitar. For a steel string acoustic guitar, I actually would usually even do like maybe 6/64ths on the bass side rather than 5.
Okay.
So your action's pretty low. Still getting some buzzing. Okay. We've measured that. Now the last thing is the action at the nut. And that's what that last gauge.
The nut gauge.
And what does that say on that? Probably has something similar where you have like electric guitar, acoustic guitar, right?
Yeah. It has .022, which doesn't have any like suggestion. It has .02 inches, which says it's the low E and A of a guitar. .018 says the D and G string of a guitar. And then .016 is the high E and B of the guitar. And then it has a couple of extra ones for more options, but it doesn't have any recommendations on them. And they're thicker. So one lower than the recommendations and two higher than the recommendations, if that makes sense. So these three are what they have for recommendations, which is between .02 inches to .016 inches. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So you're going to use this basically the same way you use the other feeler gauges. This time you don't have a capo. All you're measuring is the... you want to get an idea of the gap that exists between the first fret and the bottom of the string.
Okay.
You'd want to actually get a measurement for each string on that.
Okay.
I have a sense of what might be going on with your instrument already.
Okay.
Using the feeler gauges can be a little bit of a challenge at first to know, what's considered like the right amount of contact.
How would you go about looking at like the middle strings?
You would just slide it under the
The other side,
other strings.
like this?
Yeah.
That's
I
feeling
have
a
a whole set
little
of.
tighter to me than the E and G strings did, and that's on the lighter
Okay.
gauge. So I went to the middle. I'm doing it based on the recommendations right now. That one felt
Yeah.
a little tighter
Okay.
than the other one did.
Which one felt on which string?
I put this in. I put the .018 underneath the. Maybe it's. I wonder if it's the these two strings that are making it tighter. Hold on.
Yeah, that's a possibility. You really want to use the visual of the contact.
I mean, that looks like it's touching. Definitely touching.
Okay. I've got a whole thing of. These are my feeler gauges.
Oh my gosh. That's intense, man. Um, again, a little hard to tell, but it looks like it's still touching. On the high E and B strings, maybe a little bit tighter there than it was for the other ones.
Okay. So I think I have an idea of maybe what's going on with your instrument, and um, just based on some of the measurements you've taken, there's one more thing that I want you to try, and it's to take the fret rocker, and again, you're gonna have it in playing position to your right. Just put your tape on top of it. There you go. And um, you're gonna use. So the reason that this is shaped the way that it is not to be used as a weapon.
Stab my
Um,
guitar.
yeah, don't do that. There are four. You should have four different faces. So each of those faces is a different length, so that you can use them to be in contact with three frets at a time. So near the bottom of the neck, you'll use the longer one. What you want to do is place it across the fret so that it contacts three frets. So go up near the head of the guitar,
Near the head. Okay.
all the way, yeah, all the way up there, and contact the first fret, the second fret, and the third fret.
Okay.
And what you're looking for is you don't want the fret rocker to be able to rock. To sort of demonstrate, if you look at this, like imagine that you have, three frets, three sort of bars going across, right? One, two, three. If the one in the middle is higher, then what will tend to happen is you'll be able to rock this back and forth. So do that um, up the neck and change the side that you're using as you go up so that you're always contacting three frets, and see if there's any rock anywhere.
And I should be able, by rocking, I shouldn't have to press that hard to get it to rock, right?
No, you'll know. I mean, it's kind of like here, if I angle this down, like if I were to put my little ruler here, can you see this?
Yeah.
Like if I were to put my little ruler here, like it'll be like that sort of motion, but a little bit more minute because you're dealing with, frets, but you don't want it to rock.
Right. That makes sense.
And I especially want you to check near the B string where you're getting that buzz, or on that area that you're getting the buzz, like around there.
I don't know. Like, would it be really obvious?
Hopefully. I mean, yeah, it should be pretty obvious.
Because I'm not really noticing it. Like, it seems pretty stable here. Like, I'm not... I'd have to press to get it to rock. Like, if I have just a light grip on it... That one maybe more easily does.
Yeah, I mean, you want to have firm contact with the frets. Not like pressing down hard, but just solid contact with the surface of the frets. You can actually test this out too with the guitar on your table, and that might be a little bit easier. Because then you can sort of use both hands, and again, kind of like this, you can sort of use it like this, and you can kind of feel if it rocks. And I can't tell if it's a camera angle, but make sure you're holding this like vertically, like very like perpendicular, yeah.
Maybe like right
See,
there?
okay, you can hear it. Yeah. Is that close to where you're having the buzzing problem? Aha! We found it. So you have a high fret right there.
So I just take a hammer to it, right?
I mean, sometimes actually you can seat the fret if it's popped up a little bit. So I know you were kidding, but sometimes that is the solution actually. Um,
Right there.
yep. Okay. So you do have a high spot there.
It's so subtle, though.
But yeah, that's what I mean. That makes all the difference. Like I said, this type of work is very precise. I mean, that's all it takes sometimes.
Okay, so it's probably this fret right here then. Because that's where it's rocking. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7th fret.
Yeah, and you want to use all your senses. Like, once I heard that sound, I could literally hear the fret rocker. I could hear it making that noise, and I knew immediately. Like, you want to use all your senses as you're doing this. Okay, so here's the deal. We weren't going to be covering fretwork in this video. And that's going to be a challenge here because you don't want to just hit the fret with a hammer. to seat the fret. You like when I seat a fret, there's like a specialized tool I use that like it looks kind of like a chisel, and then like I hit that over top of the fret with like a smaller hammer.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't probably do that if the neck's not supported the right way. Like there's certain things you have to do for that.
Okay.
But there's something that I think we could maybe do to improve your situation. So when you had this guitar set up, I know you've had this professionally set up before, and most of your measurements seem to indicate that it's in pretty good shape as is. Did you have the luthier set it up in standard tuning?
Yes. Probably.
Okay, so I think that you probably could use a little bit more relief in the neck. And I think that because you've tuned down, if this is the neck, in a perfect world, you'd want it to be like, you could have it be perfectly flat. But guitars react to humidity and changes in temperature and things like that. So wood expands and contracts a bit. And as you wear down frets in certain areas, some frets can end up being slightly lower than others. So if you have it perfectly flat, it doesn't really leave you much wiggle room. And that's sort of what the neck relief is. So on most guitars, you want a little bit of relief. And that just means that the neck, like if I'm holding a guitar like this, yeah, you want it to slightly curve up.
In this direction.
In that direction, yeah, in the direction that Ethan is demonstrating. Like that. Yeah. Now, obviously, that's very exaggerated. It's a very minute amount of relief.
Yeah.
Again, we're talking like 5 to 10 thousandths of an inch. So, what I think you need to do is loosen the truss rod. So, go ahead and grab your truss rod wrench. And what I would actually do is, don't do that. Go ahead and connect that to where it's supposed to go. So that's going to go in between there.
I'm going to put it in the hole.
And on Martin guitars, you'll feel when it sort of engages.
Working on it.
It is a little challenging on those because those ones are kind of like far back in there. And you may have to angle it a little bit more. Might have to push into the strings a little bit.
I got it.
All right. So now from your perspective, if you push away from you, that's going to turn it clockwise and tighten it. If you pull towards you, that should turn it counterclockwise and loosen it. Righty-tighty, lefty-loosey.
And we want to loosen it.
Yeah, and actually you want to loosen it a good bit here because when you're making truss rod adjustments, you always want to adjust up. Because have you ever had a nut and a bolt and it's on there really tight? Once you break the bolt, it's like a sudden release, right?
Yeah.
So what happens if you're loosening it is you leave some slack there. Whereas if you're tightening it, it tends to stay in that position. But if you make your final adjustments while you're loosening it, then it will tend to slip.
Yeah.
So
it's like
we're going to go ahead.
It's like tuning. You go below it and you tune up to the note. You don't just tune straight down to it.
Correct. Yeah. So go ahead and loosen it a bit.
Like a good amount.
And that's why. Yeah. And you might have to slacken your strings a little bit if necessary.
The hardest.
That's why you put the mask. That's why you put the masking tape on there, is to so it doesn't
Destroy this.
damage your strings.
Oh.
Yeah.
Strings are replaceable. Good gosh.
You get pretty used to these things after a while, and it becomes second nature. It's kind of funny to me. Sorry to watch you. I mean, I was there too. Like, yeah.
Come on.
And also another thing to note is that the truss rod you should never feel like you have to really, really torque it super hard. If you do, you're probably doing something wrong.
Okay, so that was the second.
That's probably enough. That's
really?
probably enough.
I only did 2 turns.
Truss rod adjustments are like, again, like the difference. I could make like an adjustment from here to here, and like that might be all that I need to get like. It's again very precise. Like we're making small adjustments.
So I want to retighten it then. Just a hair.
Yeah, just so that you feel that there's no slack. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and try to make sure that we're in tune, because those adjustments can set you out of tune, and that's important. Make sure that you're in tune, and then from there we're going to take those measurements again. While you're doing that, I'm going to go ahead and get a sip of water.
Okay.
Still having that issue, huh?
Yep. Look at my pentatonic scale.
Unfortunately, I don't know for sure if that's going to be something we're going to be able to fix without doing some fret work. And that's going to be a little bit out of the scope of this video.
Can we do more neck relief? Like,
you can try it. Do you know kind of where you're at now if you use that neck relief gauge? Remember, you're going to capo the 1st fret,
playing position.
press down to the 12th fret, and then measure at the 6th fret.
Yep.
And for this, I usually would measure take a measurement at the, you could use your bass string. The high E string. Or whatever string you want, really.
That one, here, I'm going to compare it to the thickest and just see. That was the thinnest. That one's touching. At least it seems like it.
The thinnest one?
This is the thickest. The thinnest also seems like it might have been touching, but let me try again. I think it's touching. It's really damn close.
Okay. You could probably add a little bit more relief then. I think if we're trying to add a little bit more relief to just see if that can sort of temporarily help the problem with your fret buzz, I would use your thickest feeler gauge as the reference here. And just for the record, I have a certain set of specs that I like to set up my guitars on, or my guitars with. It depends on the type of instrument. And the way that we're doing things right now isn't necessarily meant to be a perfect setup. Again, like we've talked about, Ethan probably needs some fret work on this guitar, but that's outside of the scope of this video. So we're trying to get it into a better playing state for him in the moment.
Right.
Do something that might get it better for now at least.
Come on now. This is honestly the toughest part so far.
Other adjustments that can be made are the depth of the nut slots, as well as the saddle height. But based on what Ethan's shared with me, I don't think his settings, the way that his instrument is set in that regard, is too far off of where it needs to be. So I don't think we're going to mess with those today. If anything, I think the bass side of the saddle could actually come up slightly for my preferences.
I think I... Seems... Well, I'm not in playing position. Hold on. It is better.
It is better.
It's still buzzing, but
How
it is
does...
better.
Yeah.
Well, I can still bar. I don't know about the... I'm not very good at this, usually.
How's the...
How's what?
How's the neck relief now?
Do you want me to tune it again really quick?
Yeah. You need the instrument to be in tune, you need the accurate measurement. You might have to edit out some of the, like, tuning.
Do you want this to be hyper edited, or do you want it to feel like they're in the room with us?
Ethan breaking his guitar.
Okay, it's tuned now. Taking the... what did I do with it? Okay, here it is. Oh, and I don't know why I brought this back up here, because it's got to be in the playing position. So this, I need the capo. Capo here. And this is the thickest. So fretting, and then it should be here. That's definitely appears to be touching still with the thickest. What about the thinnest?
Another way that you can also test it out a little bit is if you lift up your right finger and then press it back down at the 12th fret, and then look if like you feel like it makes contact when you do that. That can also be helpful to give you a better like visual reference.
Sure, that makes sense. It looks
Kind
like
of see if it like if it taps, if it like just taps the top, you know what I mean?
it looks like it's still touching even on the thinnest to me.
It's strange. I feel like you've loosened the relief a lot. I don't feel like when you loosen the truss rod, does it feel like there's a lot of slack or no?
Right now it does.
Okay, because it shouldn't feel that loose to the point that there's like no resistance. You want to feel like it's gripping onto something. Otherwise, it's not doing anything.
Okay.
Um, so I think it's probably as loose as you want it. Like I don't think you want to loosen it anymore.
Let me just try tightening it to see where I am for looseness. I mean, if that's it's. Let me try tightening it. It's hard to tell. Is it tightening there? Sorry, some of this is just me getting a feel for.
It's hard to do this over video. It'd be a lot easier if I could do this with you in person. And
Yeah.
then I could literally show you by example. This feels like this feels like that. Like,
Okay, I'm definitely tightening it there.
okay. You want to, I mean, in this case, I think you want it to get it to the point where you're just barely tightening it. Or like it just is engaging. Based on what I think you want for your instrument right now.
Come on. So then I might need to get this taken in after all to get the frets looked at.
Yeah, fretwork is something that definitely can be learned by an amateur, but it's a little bit more involved, and I think some of the tools can be a little bit more expensive. There are low-tech ways you can do it too.
I mean, we can maybe do a. If you want, we can maybe do a part 2 video and talk about this off camera. On
Yeah. Yeah, I think
it's
you.
better.
Yeah, it should be a
literally
little bit
playing
better.
entirely out of tune before, and now it's like just buzzing on the right note.
But you definitely have a high fret there.
So I have a high fret at the 7th fret, basically.
May need to be reseated, or it might not. It might need to be like filed, like leveled, with the rest of your frets.
Okay.
Do you have like a small rubber mallet of any kind?
Not like a small one. A larger one. I could get a smaller one. Because what would you do? Would you...
Or a hammer with like a brass face?
I have like a typical hammer. We have a rubber mallet one, but it's got... The head of it is probably like that big.
Yeah, that's too big. So what I would do the first thing that I would do in that situation is just see if the fret is maybe popped up a little bit. That does happen sometimes. Again, when wood expands and contracts, things like that. So sometimes you can reseat the fret, and you want to use a small rubber hammer, or like a small little mallet with like rubber faces works really well, like a hard rubber. They make hammers sort of specifically for that, or like little jeweler's hammers. The other reason I recommended brass is because brass is softer than the fret material. Because if you use a steel hammer, it'll dent the fret because steel is harder than the fret material.
Yeah.
And you don't want that early either. So if you don't have that, then we probably won't do that.
But I could get one. I mean, and
yeah.
then we could do like a part 2 or whatever.
Yeah. I think this is probably, unfortunately, as much as we can really do today. I don't think you need to make adjustments at the nut, so I don't think we need to do use nut files that you got or anything. I don't think the saddle needs lowered at all or anything like that. I'm glad that we were able to make it a little bit better, at least.
Yeah. I mean, if anything, it's this is showing you a little bit more of like how you would address this by yourself if you had this similar type of issue, which is good.
I'm kind of curious if you were to tune it up to standard tuning, if you'd still get the same buzzing.
You want me to try it?
Yeah, let's just try it really quick.
And I can edit it out too. Well, I think it'd even be worth it. I can't imagine a small-headed hammer is going to really cost that much.
No, I mean, I think you can buy a fretting hammer that has like a rubber face for like $10.
So I don't have a problem with that. And while I'm tuning this, would you just lightly tap it to see if you can get it to reseat? Like you wouldn't really hammer on it, or?
No, I mean you would give it a decent whack. I mean, don't like. Again, this is one of the things that's hard to like gauge over video. Like,
is it like a firm hit? It's not.
Yeah, kind of like a firm
hit. It's not like
a
light
but
tap,
not like,
but it's like a firm hit. But it's not like a boom. Like.
Yeah, not like that. And you'd want to make sure that that neck support that you are using is directly under the fret that you're working on.
Sure. Almost there. Starting to get more adjusted. I'm probably gonna have to retune this tomorrow too. Because my guitar's probably not used to it.
The other thing too, if you end up reseating the fret, is, if you had that problem to begin with, you might have that problem again. So sometimes it's a good idea to wick a little bit of like a really thinned out CA glue into that fret slot so that the fret will stay there. It sort of holds it.
Wouldn't I need to take it out of the fret slot then to do that?
No. But you would need like a razor blade to or like a really, really sharp chisel to clean it up. That's probably not something I would recommend you do by yourself. Because CA glue, if you get it on the finish by accident, it's better, yeah.
Just a little bit, but it's definitely better. There's a little bit still, but it's definitely better. If I were to put 13s on here, do you think it would make a difference? In
to be honest,
tuning?
No. I mean, it would help again. So, kind of what I talked about, actually, I have a rubber band here. What I talked about before, where I talked about how the strings are stretched tighter. So, if you notice, when I pluck this rubber band, if it's looser, the rubber band, the sort of, what's the name for that shape that it makes?
Concave?
No, the shape of the vibration. There's a name for it. I can't remember the correct terminology for it.
Shape of the vibration? Like a sine wave?
I don't think that's what I'm looking. Anyway, someone will tell us in the comments. But when it's looser, it actually makes a bigger motion. When it's tighter, that motion becomes a little bit. It becomes smaller.
Yep.
So the same thing works on guitar strings. Oops, I just broke this. Where when the strings are stretched a little tighter, they don't. The distance of the vibration becomes tighter, and so in theory, putting a heavier gauge string, especially when you're tuned down a little bit, might help with some of that buzzing. But to me, the problem that you're having is you have a high fret. And I'm almost 100% certain that that's probably what the issue is for your guitar. Sometimes you can get humps in the neck if they warp, things like that. But generally, if that's the case, you'll have a whole section of the neck that's a problem area, not just one fret in particular. And then the other thing too is your particular Martin guitar is an X series, and the neck is laminated out of a lot of pieces, smaller pieces of wood, and your fretboard is Richlite. And what that equals is you have a neck that is inherently very, very stable. So generally, those necks with the laminated construction like yours and the Richlite fretboard, they generally don't go have too many issues with or at least in my experience, they don't generally have too many issues with like warping or twisting or getting humps or like weird bows or some sort of weird geometry in them.
Sure.
So I'm almost certain that seventh or sixth or seventh fret or whatever is probably not seated right, or is just high and needs to be leveled.
And that's where the fretting hammer would come in.
The fret hammer would be for seating the fret. If you want to level the fret, you need to file it.
Which I'm less comfortable with.
I wouldn't, yeah, probably would not do that.
But it might be worth just having a fretting hammer and just hitting it in and seeing if that fixes it.
And I'm not sure how much you...
Would you, so like this it's literally just the B string at the, right around the 7th fret. You still think that could be a high fret issue? That even though it's not on the other strings?
Well, I know that you have a high fret there because of the fret rocker. You definitely do. The only other thing is, do you notice that if there's any like divots in your frets in that area from play, like from wear? Like you might see like a little mark. I'm talking like like a deeper divot.
I see a little bit of a cut in there.
So that could also contribute to it too. So it might be time to... When you have that, it might be time to have some fret work done, depending on how deep it is.
You're not going to be able to see it probably very well. But
you can probably take a picture on your phone and send it to me later.
Yeah. But yeah, there's definitely a little bit of one. But I can get a fretting hammer and I can try that.
Okay, well, I think that's it for today. Usually what I would do at this point after I've done all my... let's assume that we've done all our adjustments and everything. I usually do the adjustments with the old strings on there first, especially if it's going to be the same string gauge. And then I would take the strings off, polish the frets. I use steel wool. Some people are really against steel wool. You have to be careful if you're working on like electric guitars or anything with some sort of magnetic pickup in it, because the metal filings can get into the coils of the pickup. So if you're going to use it on like an electric guitar, you need to make sure you use masking tape to carefully mask off any area, and then like vacuum up all the shavings really, really well before you take the tape off. That is important. for that reason, some luthiers won't steel wool, but there are also a lot of professional shops that I know of that use it, and it's fine. That's what I'm used to using.
Sure.
So I will use that to polish the frets. I'll oil the fretboard. Clean the guitar a little bit, just to make it look nice, and then I'll put the new strings on. If I'm changing string gauge, I will still make some adjustments beforehand to get me close, and then I'll dial it in. Either way, when I put the new strings on, I'm going to do double checks of all my measurements, make sure that everything's where I want it to be, make any final fine tuned adjustments, and get it cleaned up before I give it back to the client. But that's sort of the process of a basic setup. You saw that we did a initial sort of inspection where we took some measurements, kind of tried to diagnose what was going on, why we were getting that buzz. Generally, you want to do the sort of least destructive thing first. So, rather than there's a high fret, let's immediately file the frets down. We made some other small adjustments first. We're gonna try to adjust the neck relief first, and then, the order that I generally do things in. Some people do it differently, but I make my neck relief adjustments first. On an acoustic guitar, I would then make my adjustments of the action at the saddle. Or I guess action at the 12th fret by adjusting the height of the saddle. And then from there, I would make my adjustments to the string height at the nut by using those files, kind of like this, if I need to do that. And if that's not working, then I'll start to look into maybe if there needs to be any fretwork. Sometimes it's obvious that there's fretwork needed, and you just know you're going to have to do it anyway. But generally, you want to try to do the simplest solution first.
Sure. Now, with the fretting hammer, do I want to cover the fretboard with something when I do that? Or is it precise enough that I don't need to worry about damaging the fretboard?
I mean, yeah,
I'm not going to slam on it,
I feel like you'd have to be really swinging uncontrollably to miss. So you should be fine.
Okay. Sounds good. I mean, at the very least, we diagnosed it, right? We can't fix it right here on the video, but we were able to diagnose what the issue is with some basic tools, right? So, I don't know. That's nice.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. As far as a setup, you could always find a garbage guitar and do a demo on setting up my cheapo guitar that I gave you or something like that. You could deliberately mess it up and then fix it.
I mean, it's always good to practice. That's one thing I'll say. If this is not something you feel comfortable with, then don't do it. People, tend to really treasure their instruments, especially if it's not your own instrument and you don't know what you're doing, you're not comfortable. Then don't mess with someone else's guitar. But I think that if you are a guitarist and serious musician and you want to get the most out of your instruments, you don't necessarily have to be an expert, but having the ability to diagnose things and make some basic adjustments is definitely a skill that's good to have. And unless you're a superstar or something, and have a team of technicians that travel with you, if you're an average gigging musician like most of us are, Um, you're not really always going to have someone at the gig who can make those adjustments except you. So I think it's a good thing to be able to do.
Me. Except I have Matt Rector, so he can just do all my adjustments for me.
If I lived closer to you, yeah, I'd be easier, but...
We'll move closer to me. Come on, Matt. It's so simple.
I know. All my friends always want me to move back.
I'm just kidding. I support you living in the murder capital of America.
Hey. We're second place, okay?
I'm just kidding. I can edit that out if you want.
Yeah, be nice to Baltimore.
Hear that? Matt lives in Baltimore. Now you can find him and you can steal his luthier equipment. There's only... Everyone hates
on Baltimore, but be nice to Baltimore. It's a good place.
I don't hate on Baltimore that much. Just a little bit. Mainly because you live there instead of in Iowa. Anyway, well, I mean, I think that's still, like, good to go through all that. If anything, I can do a little bit more debugging. If I do go to get it set up in the guitar shop, I can tell them I did some checking and it seems like maybe the issue is this fret. And then, if anything, it gives them a heads up and they can ignore what I say, but it still gives them like a heads up that I think it might be this, so but thank you for giving me free help. You're not charging me for this, are you? Because if you do,
well, how long have we been on this call? Because my shop rate is about $65 an hour.
I think we've been on this call for like 2 minutes. Also, I don't have any money, so I can't pay you. And you're in Baltimore, so what are you going to do about it?
All right, well, I think that's probably it for this edition, or this special episode of... I don't know if this will make it to Intune or not, but we'll see. But
maybe Rector Guitars.
If it does,
it
might go on the Rector Guitars YouTube page. We'll see. Either way, until next time, stay tuned.
Watch out.